Boom, yes, team. What is happening? Wednesday, the 27th of November, 2024, and we are getting into city season strategies. That's a lot of alliteration of S, like I was just doing with my 8-year-old son just there for his English homework. Anyway, hopefully everyone's doing good. If you're catching this back on the private podcast, hello, glad to be in your ears. If you're watching this back on YouTube, totally cool. But yeah, this is now going to be something which I think is going to stand the test of time. And you're going to find it insightful. You're going to find it eye-opening, and it's not just going to be the kind of low-level strategies, which I'm sure you've got a hold of already because of where you are on your fitness journey and what have you. So, without further ado, let's dive in. So, as always, I like this to be as interactive as possible, rather than just me present and you think, "Oh, that's good," and then you kind of go off and just do your own thing. Okay, as always, coaching is about implementation, at least for me. So if you can pick up just one new thing, one mindset shift, one strategy, one thing which you're going to commit to doing differently, so that in January 2025, you are hitting the ground running. You're not regretting the past 4 weeks. And why are we even putting this training on anyway? And it is simply because in my vast experience and time of being a coach, inside 23 and even before that, from now until the end of the year, and I'm not even going to say to the end of the year, from now until about mid-January is what I would say is the danger point for a lot of people. It's the point in where, for whatever reason, and it could be due to the festivities and the increased socials and the boozing and all the rest of it, or it could be just because people are typically really burnt out, very stressed. They get to the end of the year and it's just a bit like, "Cool." Whatever it may be, fitness can go out the window. And I've seen some people who have made such good progress with their mindset, with their physique, with their nutrition, with their lifestyle, with their training. It literally all goes to pot during these next few weeks. So we are going to attempt to explore things differently. You know that I'm not a buzzkill. You know that I enjoy a glass of something here and there, and then certainly more so in December. But at the same time, I'm a big fan of having no regrets and not waking up, as I say, in January, feeling like you're on the back foot and feeling like the first quarter of the year is just getting you back to where you were prior to this point because it was managed not very effectively. All right. So this whole point of this training is so that you literally can have your cake and eat it. All right. So as we get into it, again, what this is not going to be about is me telling you what to eat and what not to eat. Do you know why? Is because you're going to fucking do your own thing anyway. You're gonna eat what you're gonna eat, and you're gonna not eat what you're not gonna eat. I know it sounds really silly, but 9 times out of 10, people are very stuck in their ways when it comes to this time of the year. And me telling you not to crack on with the mince pies if that's your thing, not to have Christmas pudding, not to have all the indulgences. Number one would be massively hypocritical, but number two, you're gonna do it anyway. So it's more about how do we mitigate the damage. Okay. I'm not going to give you low level advice about calorie banking. Not that it's not a valid tool to use, but me as a coach, methodologies, they grow, they change, they adapt. And my opinion, a hallmark of a good coach is the ability to look on certain protocols, look on certain things in which you may have prescribed and go, do you know what, this actually doesn't work as well as I thought it did, or as well as it should do on paper. And I'm afraid calorie banking is one of those things. For those of you that don't know what calorie banking is, I want a quick reminder. It's essentially whereby if we consider that it's not like your metabolism shuts off overnight, right? So yes, you've got a macro and a calorie target potentially in which you're looking to hit over the course of a 24-hour period. But the reality is that period can stretch more to like a 7-day period, right? So just like you would budget your finances, we're going to pull back a little bit during the week so that you can quote unquote spend more during the weekend where you're likely to be more social. Again, on paper, this sounds great. I cannot tell you how many times that this backfires because people are so damn hungry by the time that they get to Friday or Saturday night because they've already been in a deficit and now we're just increasing that. Okay. And they just binge their face off and they can't stop. And now they've eaten above and beyond the calories in which they quote unquote banked. So that has happened too many times for me to ignore it. Because like I say, this might work great on paper, but in the real world, it's a whole different thing. How many of you out of interest have experienced like that basically? You've kind of you've looked at your weekend, there's some social events going on, you're like, oh, it's cool, I'm just going to pull back during the week, and you really go aggressively hard during the week and you really pull back calories in order to quote unquote make room. And then what happens by the time you actually get to the weekends? Either you're so bollocks or tired that the workouts during the week have suffered, or your mentality has, and or you're now absolutely starving, so that when you do get to the weekends you can't even stick to the plan anyway because you're so hungry. Has that ever happened to anyone in the chat? I'd absolutely love to know. Just give me a little thumbs up if it has, or a thumbs down if it hasn't. But I'm here to tell you that across the board, I hear about this nearly every week, which is why I'm hesitant to recommend it as a strategy. Does that make sense? Cool. And then again, low level advice about telling you that, there are less calories in a GNT than there are in a beer. Again, you should know that, right? That's what Google is there for. And again, if you wanna kind of, mitigate the damage by having some lower calorie foods, that is totally cool. But that's not what this training is going to be on. We're going to talk more high level stuff. Okay. So what I do want you to do is go into January not hating yourself. Yeah. I want you to have light bulb moments that you can still make progress this month. I think the minute that you say to yourself, I can't progress this month, right? The minute that you fucking can't progress this month. But the minute that you realize that you can, and I'm going to show you how you can, I'm not just going to give you a bunch of motivational mumbo jumbo. I'm going to logically show you that you can. Okay. But also how to have your mince pies, your mulled wine, your cheese board, and just basically not dig yourself into a massive hole that you need to climb out of, as I say, in Q1 of 2025 before you even start to make progress above and beyond the point in which you are right now. So that is my goal of this training. Yeah, that sounds good. Stick around. All right, as always, team. First of all, someone put this on social media. One of you lot was one of my clients, actually. I'm not going to say who. I was absolutely wetting myself. I found it very funny. I don't know what Auntie Linda's done. I'm not going to read it out loud. So for those of you that are on the podcast, yeah, just watch it back on the YouTube. But this whole like fuck it mode, it's Christmas. That's the thing which we want to avoid. Yeah, that's what we want to avoid, and that's what I see so often. Uh, Justifying poor decisions, and it's like it's November, and there are some people with this the fuck it is Christmas mode, and it's like it's literally November right now. Christmas is a month away, and if we've got the fuck it is Christmas mentality now, yeah, you are just justifying piss poor standards and behavior, which is going to cause you to gain weight and weight in which you don't want to gain. Yeah. um, so yeah, just that basically. But that's the whole mode in which you want to try and avoid. So as always, team, I want to make this as interactive as possible. Again, for those of you listening back, just jot these down before I kind of crack on with some strategy bits and pieces. But I just want you to reflect and really kind of get clear in your mind the next 5 questions. I'm going to blast through them now. Okay. For those of you that are here with me live, I would love some answers to this. Just chuck them in the chat. But number one, how would you actually want to feel come the first real week of January? I'm not going to say January 1st because you're going to be hungover as hell. Okay. Let's be real. The new year starts in the second week, right? At earliest. How do you want to feel come the first real week of January? I'd love to know. Number two, what normally happens this time of year for you with your mindset, with your physique, with your standards, with your lifestyle, with your diary? Okay. And if you were to repeat that this year, are you happy with that outcome? Yes or no? Number three, what for you personally right now could be the best case outcome during this period? And what could be the very worst? Get clear on that. Get very, very clear on that. Like numbers clear. Get ultimate clarity. Okay. Number four, if the answer to number two is something which you're not happy with, are you actually willing to do things differently? And that's a very powerful and potent question. Because if you're not, then all the training, all the tips, all the strategy in the world doesn't really matter because you're not going to do things differently. Your psyche is not up for that. Okay. And then number five, which parts of the current protocol which you're running right now may need you to buckle down on and go harder on, may need for you to adopt, adapt, and pivot ever so slightly, and what parts may you need to even temporarily get rid of altogether? Again, these questions have been purposefully built out for you. Okay. The reason they're there is because if you look at number five, a lot of the problems happen because of a lack or mismanaged expectations. And people are beating themselves up about why they're not using my fitness pal in the third week of January, or why they're not getting their steps out when, they're not in a fat loss phase. It's fucking pissing it down with rain. It's really dark. Or they can't get to the gym 4 times a week and they get to their two or three and they're really pissed off at themselves. But again, for me, that just boils down to mismanagement of expectations as to what you could probably achieve for that week. Okay. So get very, very clear on them. I'll rattle through them once again. Again, for those of you that are with me now, I'll love some answers in the chat just to help me see where your mindset's at. Yeah, just chuck down a couple of notes, a couple of thoughts. That'd be great. Or indeed, just unmute and come on. But super quickly, number one, how do you want to feel come the first real week of January? Number two, what normally happens this time of the year with your mindset slash physique? And are you happy with that outcome this year if that was to stay the same? Number three, what is the best outcome for you personally and what is going to be the worst? Number four, if you're not happy with number two, what are you now willing to do differently, or are you willing to do things differently? And number five, what parts of the protocol may need you to buckle down on and go harder on? Where might you need to adapt, adopt, and pivot ever so slightly? And what might you need to get rid of altogether temporarily to take away some mental stress and to realign expectations with what's possible for you this time of the year. Would love to know. Anything come to mind, team? Jot it down and we'll move on. David, my man, how do you want to feel from the first week of January? Number one, like a shred board. Guy is absolutely, I think you are the leanest individual inside 23 right now. We've been dieting for all of, I want to say 8 weeks, maybe nine. Can't be that long. And David is peeled, absolutely peeled. So yeah, massive congrats there. So number two, big binge mode, mince pies and Baileys on deck. Absolutely love that. Best case, I maintain my physique with minimal fat gain, slash muscle loss. Worst case, I say fuck it and bye bye to my abs. And four, absolutely, but still want to think about, still want mince pies. And number five, not thinking about my diet. Okay, cool. There are going to be certain days in December whereby you don't think about your diet. Okay. That's fine. And that is never going to be the very thing which fucks things up. It is always what happens after that. The mindset of like, let's write off the whole month. And again, I'm going to demonstrate that. Dipping my man, another absolute operator. Let's go. So number one, proud of myself and powerful. That's how I want to feel the first real week of January. And then number one, like what will make you feel proud in particular? What will you have said yes to? What would you have done differently? What would you have said no to? Where is that feeling of pride going to come from? Again, that needs to be specific to you, my man, because for some people it could be like getting 10K steps in. I can't say that to you because your average is like 16. Do you know what I mean? So get really clear on like what are the things that you do would make you proud. Is it boundaries with certain people? Is it boundaries with a certain amount of booze? I don't know. Number two, vicious cycle of events, some which is unavoidable, but my issue last year was hitting the beers. Yep. Best case, a kilo lower. Worst case, three up. Cool. That's good clarity. Number four, say yes, ditch the beer. Cool. And again, so when we want to bin off a behavior which is holding us back or we're not happy with or what have you, oftentimes, if not all the time, that behavior needs to be replaced with something else. I don't think you're going to stop drinking in December. Far from. If you're going to say no to the beers, cool. I'm behind you. What we're going to do instead? We're going to substitute out for some G&Ts. We're going to have wine instead. Like what's going to replace that beer? Just get very clear on that. And then number five, say no to certain events. Yeah, there's a slide in here coming up, and it's basically just like pick your spots, pick your moments, pick the things which you really want to indulge in with the people in which you really want to indulge with, and have at it. Enjoy it. No guilt, no shame. Crack on. I'm seeing some buddies who I haven't seen since January. They're coming down in December. It's going to be a mad session because it is. However, people that I see more often, or if we're not going anywhere that special, like yourself, Dippin, I'm going to be like, do you know what? I don't need to send it. Yeah. Because that's going to obviously cause a whole heap of stuff in which I now don't want. Um, since JD and Coke, I get fed up with it after four, whereas beers, I keep going. Cool. That's good clarity. That is good clarity. Wicked. Um, all right. Good stuff, team. Cool. Chris, have a little think about potentially some answers to those. You don't necessarily have to jot them down, but have a little think about them for yourself. Kind of worst case scenario, best case scenario, what normally happens, what you're going to do differently, all that good stuff. Yeah. All right, team. Let's plow on through. Okay, so I get you guys to do this nearly every single year for those of you that are in my coaching program in December. And it's an eye opener, right? And it's literally the ability to sit down with a calendar in December and be like, okay, based on what I've now just said about moments in which you're going to send it and you're going to basically have at it versus days in which there's no festivities going on, it's a quote unquote boring day, and there's no reason for me not to literally nail it, right? Go ahead and just tick the days in which you think that you can nail because there's nothing really going on, and go ahead and put a cross on the days whereby you know it's going to be a bit of a write-off. Yeah. So if we kind of just start this process together. So clearly, Christmas Day, write off. Let's be honest, Christmas Eve, write off. Let's be honest, Boxing Day, write off. Yeah. 31st, write off. Okay. Those are 1, 2, 3, 4 days, right? Of course, you're going to have things on, I'm sure, nearly every weekend. There might be a little random Thursday in there. That doesn't normally happen. Maybe, oh shit, I've got this pantomime on that day. Okay, get them in the diary. Okay. I guarantee you, even the most busy and social of you, okay, I'm pretty sure I'm right in saying this, is that you will still have plenty, if not more days that you can go boom, 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 nothing happening, nothing happening, nothing happening. Okay. And that is massively, massively significant because then you look at it and you're like, oh, the whole month isn't actually a write-off because there's more of these guys than there are these. And therefore, I'm going to win. I'm going to move forward because all that means is worst case scenario, I maintain. Okay. And again, maintenance does not mean that you maintain your lowest bottom weight. Okay. It means roughly maintaining within a 1 to 3% range off that. So for most, that's like 1 to 2 keys. Yeah, ish. All right. That's worst case scenario. Best case scenario, some of you might be able to still sneak in a little bit of fat loss, you know? And then again, it might come up a little bit for 3 days, but it's never the 1 to 2 days in which is the problem. What actually happens is people just go like this. See you December. Bye. I'm going to crack on again in the new year. And even that wouldn't even be that much of a problem if people literally woke up on the first and were like, let's go. Guess how many people in my experience do that? Hardly anyone. I let you into another little thing as well. When you talk to people about, what do you do? What's your job? I, run a fitness coaching company and blah, blah, blah. They're like, oh, I bet January is absolutely wild for you. I bet you have loads of inquiries, but you sign up loads of people. And it's like, you would think that, wouldn't you? New year, new me, and all the rest of it. Number one, I hope none of you in the chat right now have joined up in January. But typically people who join up in January aren't the best clients. Yeah, just as a basic like heuristic, just because sometimes it's a bit of a knee-jerk reaction to where they're at right now, and they're really kind of full of, wee and wind, but actually it never lasts. But also it's not until like February, March, April. Those are good months for a fitness coach, right? And I truly think it is because people aren't very good at putting down the mince pies and the quality streak. They're still fucking around in January. Okay. So again, bounce back ability, get back on track faster. Don't write the whole thing off. Really get clear on the days in which you're going to nail and are boring and are going to be your fat loss days or maintenance days or muscle building days whereby you're eating a diet and what have you, and days in which okay, it's going to be a little bit of a shit show, and that's okay because it's December. But again, you want to avoid just writing off the whole month. Okay, 100%. Okay, this one. So get crystal clear. Get crystal clear on your minimums and maximums. A lot of this advice, right, is like foundations, it is basics. Okay. I've restarted playing basketball recently. I used to play back in the day National League, and it's been an eye opener of just how bad I am now compared to what I used to be, right? I used to be able to do behind the back passes, dribble eyes closed. Like when I got the ball, people were like, don't let him shoot because he's going to get it in. Now they're like, let him shoot because he keeps missing. And the point is that I am now trying to jump before I can crawl, and I need to go back to the basics. And the last couple of weeks I've been doing so, and it feels so much better. And so for you guys, like, getting clear on minimums and maximums, that is now going to be key for you because that is going to have you look at the week ahead and really forecast out like, okay, cool. Like what kind of week is this? What kind of, the next few days are looking like for me. And what I mean by that is like when we take your foundational four, right? Steps, training, nutrition, like sleep. What's the minimum which you're not going to go under? So for me, I know no matter what's going on socially, no matter what is happening in my life, I'm not going to not train less than twice a week, right? That's just simply not happening unless it's like a full deload where I've chosen to. Okay. So my minimum on training is going to be two. My minimum for steps is going to be like six. And again, that's not a target, but it's like if it's less than that, then bloody hell, I've just sat in the chair all day, and that's not good enough. Okay. Again, minimum for sleep, it's got to be seven because I know me personally, if I sleep six or below, I feel, look, act, operate like an absolute slug. Yeah. So again, most of you know how good it feels and know what to do when your game plan's on point, 110%. You can't wait to check in. You've lost a kilo, bish, bash, bosh. You know what to do, right? But a lot of you don't know what to do when you look at the week in the diary and you're like, shit, this is now looking pretty full on. And it's because we didn't have these set up. What are your minimums? Most people operate with an on or off button. Okay. They're either on plan, on the wagon, let's go. That's not the problem because their off switch is just as potent. Fuck it. I'm going to forget it all. It's like that middle ground will move you forward. Maybe not at the rate in which you want, that it stops you slipping into bad habits and it stops you having poor quality outcomes. So get those minimums locked in. Worst case scenario, best case scenario. Because now I've got this really nice range in which I can operate in December rather than on plan, off plan. That is so, so powerful. I cannot tell you. Yeah. So get those locked in. Honestly, this is a very powerful slide. Boring as fuck. Like these tips aren't sexy, but they are going to be the very reason why you wake up in January and either enjoy it and go, do you know what? I had a blast in December and I still look good and I still feel good and I'm ready to crack on with the plan. Or you go, oh, feel like a slug, look like a slug, and all the rest of it. In terms of calculating your own minimums and maximums, it's a very individualized thing, but it's certainly something which I can work with you towards. In fact, if you go into the lab, we've got a training called Good, Better, Best. And I think it's in the higher level thinking category. What you want to do is watch that 2 minute video. I've got some crazy long lockdown here, absolutely wild. And also download the associated PDF with it. But basically, have a crack at it on your own first. So it's literally going to be like this, yeah? And it's like, right, steps, Bosch, training, Bosch, nutrition, yeah? And it's going to go good, better, best. Writing's terrible, but just bear with. So, for instance, if I go with nutrition, or a lot of the time it's booze this time of the year, yeah. So, like, what is worst case scenario with booze that you're still, you're still gonna like be okay with? That might be like boozing twice on the weekday and then on the weekend. It's like, okay, cool. So that is like, you're good. If, for instance, you were used to boozing every single day, what's better than that? Only boozing on the weekend. What's best case scenario? Only boozing on the events in which are worth it. Okay, great. So now you've got like a tiered system. Get me? When it comes to again training, best case scenario, I hit all my training sessions. I get to the gym if I'm programmed with Sharif to hit the gym 4 times a week. I hit the gym 4 times a week. Right? Better. I miss one session, so I make it 3. Okay, cool. What's your minimums? Okay, 2. Do you know what I mean? So you just operate on this tier, and it's really powerful, really powerful. So flesh that out on your own, send it to me, and then I'll be like, yep, that's bang on, or no, it's not, and let's tweak it. And the reason why I want to do it that way is the exact same reason why I don't write out meal plans for people from scratch. And if someone wants a meal plan, I'm like, cool, these are your macros, this is how a day could look like for you. You go and write your own meal plan with the foods in which you enjoy, and obviously I help them out, give them templates, and then come back to me. Every single time I've done that, I've got better outcomes than if I just slave away with a meal plan and say, here you go, go and follow it. It never works. It never works. Yeah. Because you're not invested enough into it. Anyway, I digress. Let's move on. So hopefully that was powerful. Right, team. A little bit of maths, a little bit of science for you. Okay. Does anyone know what this is on the screen right now? This yellow blob. Anyone know? Cheese? Someone's thinking about the cheese board already. No, it's not cheese. Anyone else? Bosh. Chris in the building. We're still sharp after the full day. Inside of me a year ago. So this team is 1 pound of body fat. Yeah, this gross looking thing. Cool. This has the same equivalent calories of 3,500 associated with it. Okay. So it has the equivalent energy of 3,500 calories, roughly. Can you see? And again, I'm going to embarrass myself here with my awful maths. But if we look at this number and we divide that by 7, okay, we get 500. Am I right? Which is pretty much why people will say, like, oh, to be in a deficit where you lose a pound of body fat every single week, 500 times 7. Yeah, so a deficit of 500 per day, we get 3,500 calories, aka, oh, sorry, aka one of these guys. Get me? Okay, that's just something in which is true and you need to know. So, given that new knowledge, right? Why on earth, or how on earth, let's say you get on the scales on one day and let's just do it in pounds because it's easier, 180 pounds. You got to eat a few beers, whatever it may be. Next day, you're 185 pounds. Given this knowledge, yeah, that would mean that you've added or you've eaten an extra 1,700 calories if that 5 pounds of scale weight was body fat. 1,700 calories in one evening. Okay. Now, I know some of you go really hard. I do as well. But best believe you haven't done that in an evening. You just haven't. So how can we account for that extra 5 pound jump? Increasing glycogen, aka the fuel inside your muscle tissue. Number 2, an increase in body water. Okay. We know that for 1 gram of carbohydrate, it brings with it about 3 grams of water. And typically you're overindulging on high carbohydrate foods. Okay. And then also you probably need the loo. We haven't kind of been yet, and you're feeling the effects of just having more food in the gut. And all that can easily lead to 5 pounds up, easily. But you have to understand that if you did just have a night out and you ate like a normal person, you might have shared a starter, you had a main, you shared a dessert, we had a couple glasses of wine, maybe you shared a bottle and went home, you haven't put on 5 pounds of fat. It's physically impossible despite the scales the next day. Do you understand that? The actual problem is people go, oh my God, I'm 5 pounds heavier. I've absolutely screwed it. F this. I'm just going to carry on. And now we are actually adding weight. The only way in which you can add body fat is by you being in a chronic calorie surplus over time. That's it. Okay. And I say that chronic. So not just via an evening. And if you consider that you've likely been in a deficit before those days, you've created like a bucket or a sink. Okay. So first of all, we have to fill the bucket and then we have to let it overflow with calories. Now, of course, you can do that, but again, you don't do that in an evening, which is why that bounce back ability is so key. Because guess what? If you wake up and you go, that was fun, I had a really good time, but guess what? Today is one of my quote unquote boring days. There's nothing festive going on, and I'm back to nailing it. I guarantee you that small drop in the ocean means nothing. It's not going to show up on your physique. It's not going to do anything, negative because you got on with it. I tell you when it will is when you go, F this. And now I'm just gonna like skip my high protein breakfast and go for cereal. And I'm gonna grab a sandwich on lunch. And then I'm just gonna start boozing, even though I'm sitting at home doing nothing in my pajamas. Okay, cool. Now you're starting to mess up. Yeah. Hopefully that makes sense. Um, I've talked about this before, but I think this diagram's quite impactful. Yeah, does that make sense? And also, even if you're that sort of person who understands that logically, we are still emotional beings. It's still not nice to see that jump up in scale weight, right? Just know that the scale will jump up, right? And down and left and right and whatever more this month than any other month. And so if you're triggered by that, like don't get on the scale after you've been out for a Chinese meal. Don't get out on the scale if you've been out for any sort of like festive lunch. Because it's all well and good like collecting data, but you want to collect good data. You want to collect relevant data. So collect the data whereby you've had a couple of days which you've been on plan, then jump on the scale. Makes sense because you're only going to annoy yourself otherwise. Yeah. Cool. Again, very basic and like, your mum probably told you this, right? Like moderation. Okay. We had a chappie inside 23D when I first opened up the coaching program, and he did remarkably well. And he was like traveling, I want to say nearly every single month. And he wasn't a hermit to my fitness pal or anything like that. He liked a good drink up, he liked certain sweet things and all the rest of it. And I just quizzed him. I was like, how are you doing this? Because I literally see you on Instagram stories eating out a lot, and you're pretty damn lean. And he was like, I literally pick my indulgences. Like if I'm having a starter, yeah, I don't have dessert. If my favorite dessert's on the menu, I don't have the starter. If I'm having the booze, I don't have the dessert. Just like pick which one for that occasion is the most important to you. Okay. I don't want to get in the weeds about like alcohol and digestion or the rest of it, but like TLDR and like Cliff Notes, all you need to know is that when booze is in the system, okay, your body, best believe, is not building muscle tissue and is not burning body fat. It's not doing those things. Okay. Those metabolic processes are literally put on hold because your body only wants to get rid of that poison from its body because it treats it as a toxin, as a poison. And until that is rid from the liver, you ain't digesting a lot of the food in which is going, there right now. So one of the worst things you can do, and like I understand that socially this is just what happens, but eat a lot and drink a lot. So for me, I try, and if I'm eating, I'm eating. If I'm boozing, I'm boozing. Doing both at the same time, I try not to. It doesn't always work, clearly, especially this time of the year. But just be cognizant, just be mindful, and just pick your indulgence. Yeah. Does it have to be starter, main, dessert, booze, cheese board, after chocolates, like espresso martinis every single time you're out? Probably not. Again, pick the people you want to indulge in, pick the things you want to indulge in, enjoy it, and say no to the things which are just there and the old version of you might have just grabbed purely out of habit. But it's not bringing anything extra to your life. It's not bringing anything more beneficial in any way, shape, or form. You know what I mean? It's like nuts by the bar. Who needs them? You don't need them. Don't stop eating them. Yeah, 500 calories gone down your neck before you even realized it, and you didn't even enjoy it that much. It's those sorts of decisions. Okay. I used to have this phrase, right? Don't eat quavers at Christmas. Similar sort of vibe. So like, I want you to enjoy the festive food, enjoy the mulled wine, the Christmas cake, Christmas mince pies, whatever it may be, whatever you indulge in this time of the year, have at it, enjoy it. Okay. But again, if you wouldn't eat quavers year round, don't eat them at Christmas because it's not a Christmas food. Do you know what I mean? Like pick your indulgences and enjoy them. Don't just write it off because this gets into the mindset of like this whole month is a write-off. So now I've let myself off the hook. I can pretty much do what I want. No. Okay. Stick to the meal plan, stick to the structure, stick to the high protein. All right. But now we're just having little bits and pieces around that structure. But the core kind of premise is still there. Yeah. When we eat our food, okay, not in terms of nutrient timing, but like on a plate of food, or pardon me, what we, I suppose, eat first is of paramount importance. Okay. Again, if you want to actually feel fuller faster and therefore not indulge in so many calories and therefore add a bunch of calories and fat gain, etc., protein and veggies first. Not only are they highly thermogenic, meaning that your body will literally break down and digest and use more calories to do so versus any other food group, but also they're very, very satiating. High protein, high fiber foods are very satiating, and therefore you're going to feel fuller faster. Okay. Eat your protein and your veggies first, and then indulge on the bits and pieces in which you want to. The worst thing you can do, and again, this goes back to the calorie banking thing, yeah, is turn up at a house party, at an event, whatever it may be, like dieted and hungry. Because what do you think is going to happen? You think you're going to be able to moderate, have one slice of pizza and be good? No, that whole tray of pizza's gone because you're so hungry. And now all that's in front of you is highly palatable food. Whereas actually, if you didn't go there hungry because you had a whey shake and an apple and some water or a Greek yogurt, whatever it may be. So, do you know what I mean? So now you're not famished and you can just indulge on the bits in which you want to and then leave it. Also, I really want you to think about this, right? For those of you that say, for instance, like pizza. I love pizza, right? It's like my thing. When you're having that first slice of pizza, it's unreal. If you like pizza, right? It's unreal, yeah. Amazing. So good. Second slice of pizza, pretty good. This is still great. Third slice, yeah, not bad. Fourth, getting kind of old now. Fifth, and now I feel terrible. Sixth, I never want to see a pizza again. So like the experience gets progressively worse, not better. And it's the same thing generally with like foods. Like have the taste of it, enjoy it, but realize that having more of it isn't going to make that experience better for you. It will likely make it worse now that that craving's been settled. It takes quite a lot of power to sort of bring that back in that moment when you're sort of like knee deep in the second Cadbury bar, whatever it may be. But if you can just bring awareness to the fact and be like, is this more enjoyable than the first bite? I guarantee you the answer is no. Guarantee it. Okay. But protein and veggies first. Cool. And like we just spoke about, this picture's hilarious. Don't go into those events hungry. If you are calorie banking, if you do know that you're gonna have a really indulgent evening, okay? We're gonna do some protein, we're gonna do some, fiber, and we're gonna do some water before you go, half an hour before you go. And you'll actually be annoyed and pissed off at just how full you feel. And therefore don't overeat. So do not go into an event where there's only hyper palatable food at the ready. Absolutely starving because what do you think is gonna happen? All right. Very cool. Okay, this is a massive one for me. Like, I get all the food stuff, and like I said at the start, you're gonna do what you're gonna do. Essentially, you're gonna either pick up these tips and tricks, do something different, or you're gonna self-soothe and be like, oh, I watched the training, or I came to Shreve's training, and at least it makes me feel like I'm doing something. But actually, you're just gonna do whatever you normally do. Okay, because that's just the way it is. When it comes to training, though, it baffles me when people are like, oh yeah, I sort of like stopped training. And it's like, all right, was the schedule like super busy or what have you? It's like, no, I just sort of like sacked it off. I'm like, man, we're going into a situation whereby you're eating more food, right? And then you stop training as well. Okay. And again, the reason why I'm saying to carry on your training isn't because it's going to burn a massive amount of calories. If we think about this logically for a second, right? What did I just say? 3,500 calories for 1 pound of body fat. Yeah. Even a super sweaty Peloton spinathon, right, that you do for an hour is going to burn what? 500 to 600 calories tops. Yeah. That's not even half a pound. Okay. How much exercise are you going to have to do to make a dent in your fat loss? A shit ton. So I'm not saying it so you burn a bunch of calories because you straight up won't, but I am saying it because we increase something called nutrient partitioning, which is basically where the nutrients and the food in which your body goes. If we are resistance training, if we are strength training, if we've got a decent amount of muscle tissue on our frame, your body's insulin sensitivity, its ability to store carbohydrates is high because muscle tissue acts like a sponge. It's your biggest glucose disposal agent in the body, which is why only now, heaven forbid, I have no idea why, if someone's got type 2 diabetes or what have you, it's like, the recommendations are to do weight training. It's like, of course it is. Okay. So again, give the food, the extra food in which you're eating, somewhere to go, preferably not around your waist because you're sat there doing nothing. Go and train. And by the way, if you spent the entirety of the year, David will tell you, right? Just transitioned out of a deficit. He's now into a very slight surplus, even though he's still losing weight. Metabolism is just on fire at the minute. It literally feels like you've taken something. It feels like, you're on some sort of substance. And, the substance which you're on is glucose, essentially. But training in a deficit, training, with fat loss is a skill, but essentially you're training on fumes. So now go in there, train well fed, and like recovery's better. You're so much stronger. It literally feels night and day different. The experience is night and day different. But that won't happen if you don't train. All right. I don't know about you as well, but for me, if I'm going to cock up my diet, it's going to be on a non-training day. And that's just a psychological thing. But I've definitely noticed that. If I train, I'm very, very unlikely to come home and be like, let's smash some ice cream and cake. I'm just not going to do that. Okay. Who finds, right, that it's when you're a little bit idle, a little bit bored, you might be bumming around the house, you haven't really trained. That's when it's likely to potentially go off the rails, is it not? Rarely will you mess up your food on a training day. I know it's not just me. So again, we carry on training. Okay. We have strong nutrient partitioning and all that good stuff. All right. Very cool. Then again, consider switching goals. So if you've gone back here, you've looked in the diary and you're like, shit, do you know what? I'm like Mr. Social and there's just no deficit days or there's hardly any. It's like, okay, cool. So then do we, throw the baby up the bathwater or do we go, do you know what? Let's actually switch goals for a little bit. Let's consider a muscle building phase. Let's consider a performance phase. Let's consider a phase whereby we're just focused on the weights in which we're lifting in the gym rather than the weights on the bathroom scale. There are so many things we can do that don't involve just like throwing in the towel. Do you like that picture of Jack Santa, by the way, and his missus? AI is mad, isn't it? So yeah, just that basically. Like put yourself into a performance phase, even if it's just for a month, just to see how it feels. Like switch that goal inside your head to I'm trying to burn body fat to right, I want to get absolutely jacked. I want to get as strong as I can. I want these mince pies to fuel this damn bench press. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then again, we talked about this at length before, but hopefully now you understand why it's so, so true, so, so powerful. And it's that whole thing of bounce back ability. Again, one meal, one weekend, one boozy session, none of that matters. None of that matters if you have a high degree of bounce back ability. I have a training inside the lab, and it's something like traits and characteristics of my most successful clients. Okay. And over the course of 2 decades, I've tried to basically bottle up what those traits have been and what the difference is when someone comes into my coaching program and gets good results, someone comes in and gets great results, and someone comes in and goes, you have fucking changed my life. Like those sorts of people, what are they doing differently? What's their attitude? What's the skill set? And I boiled it down to about 4 or 5 key core things. And one of them was this, because people think like the most maddest transformations is because you're absolutely perfect and nail it every time. It's like, no. But what they do is just get back on track faster than most people. Yeah, fact. So it's not a case of writing off December. You might write off an evening, but guess what? Tomorrow we're in the gym. You're waking up. We're doing electrolytes. Let's go. Okay. Your body, the way it looks right now, is an exact representation of where your standards, habits, routines, and behaviors have been at over the past 90 days, 6 weeks. Insert time frame here. So do you think that one evening is going to cock things up? Of course not, as long as it's only one evening and it doesn't lead into the next day, the next day, the next day. Does that make sense? Yeah. And again, if we think about this logically, just look at this, right? This one. Did you really gain 5 pounds of fat? Did you really eat 1,700 calories in one day? Of course not. Certainly not in one evening. And just to finish off, team, this is literally my favorite quote. I think I say this on social media literally every single year. But again, just about that fact and way, the way in which you look right now is a culmination of where things have been at. It's a lagging metric of measurement, right? And so, really and truly, that weird time in between Christmas and New Year, where it's like cheese board for breakfast, random celebrations for lunch, like maybe crack on with another ham sandwich. Do I train? Do I sit in? Is it okay to start boozing even though it's 10 o'clock in the morning? It's all a bit weird, right? So for me, it's not about what you do between Christmas and New Year, and it's more about what you do between New Year and next Christmas. You get me? Yeah. The way in which you look right now is because of what you usually do, not what you sometimes do. And we're about to enter a phase of sometimes. So, team, I really hope this was helpful. Went obviously quite in depth into it, but I really also wanted to give you a lot more than just, hey, did you know that a GNT is this many calories and a beer is this, and you can do calorie banking and just like low level advice, right? I wanted to go a little bit deeper than that. So, just before I wrap up, really and truly, and this might require a bit of vulnerability because last time I asked this question, it certainly did. Um, but when I put in the group who would benefit from this training, most of you, if not all of you, were like, yeah, definitely. Which says to me that there's some fear, there's some sort of trepidation about this time of the year, losing progress and what have you. So, given everything I've now talked about, what is your biggest fear about this time of the year? Like, what's when you look at worst case scenario, do you at the very least feel like you're armed and you're in a better place now mentally? You've got some different tools in the toolbox, or do you still feel shit? I'm a little bit scared, and let me know why and where that's coming from. So, different, my man. Given knowing what you know now, do you feel like you're in a better position to not repeat a December which you had last year, which you're not happy with? And this ain't a trick answer. The answer might be no. I don't feel any better, but I genuinely want to know. David falling off the wagon. When I'm on, I'm relentless. When I'm off, I'm all the way off. Yeah. And again, that type A personality, right? Of like, when I'm in, I'm in. When I'm off, when I'm off. Type A, very driven, go getter, high achiever, high performance, right? That sort of attitude, oftentimes in other areas of your life, causes a lot of success. I've certainly seen it in the workplace and what have you with my clients, right? However, when it comes to fitness, can be an absolute shit show because you just sign up for like in shape, out of shape, in shape, out of shape, and it's exhausting. And if we don't have those minimums, and if that is self-admittedly you, what a great month to practice a little bit of gray area. And yeah, it's not as sexy as like, right, pound a week and let's get shredded. And oh my God, you're looking so lean. But it could also be like, do you know what? I normally really go off into the deep end and I haven't done this time. Isn't that a powerful thing? Yeah. So different, let me know, dude. Do you feel, especially after this and like chatting it through, do you feel any better? And team, also, right? Like, I don't want to say this from a place of better than thou, or like I don't have these struggles. Knowing and doing, as you know, are two completely different things. And I'll be really honest with you. For me personally, a lot of the time, because I know I can pull it back, I know that I can get in shape, I know that I can flip that switch, like David's saying. Sometimes in the past, for me, I have been I'm literally going to do what I want. Fuck it, because I know I can sort it out, right? But actually, everything I say about like feeling crap, not wanting like to kind of like put yourself back too much, like that happens to me as well, and I hate that more than I enjoy doing whatever. So I'm talking to myself here as well. I'm very much in the same boat as you. I haven't got it all figured out. There are still some times I think like when you have too much knowledge, do you know what I mean? You're just like, oh, I'll do what I want. When I was at university on the nights out, the biggest pissheads were us lot, the sports lot, the doctors and the nurses. I'm like, figure that one out. We are the ones that should know better, but I think we do. And therefore, I don't know, we somehow justify it. Do you know what I mean? So, like, I just want to sort of make that clear. I really don't want to say this from a position of like, I've got everything figured out. You know what I mean? I'm just pulling that up the comments. Chris, my man, I've got 2.5 weeks over a Christmas period where I'm away for 3 trips. Won't be able to work out and will be surrounded by seasonal foods. Worried about stepping on the scales come Jan. Or I won't be able to hold it together in December beforehand to balance it out. Cool. So what I would do there is look in the diary and be like, right, are there any days in which I can? Or are they so few and far between that even my little exercise of like green ticks and red crosses is not going to go well for you because you're away for 3 trips? So that'll be the first thing. Second thing, let's say for instance you look at that and you're like, there's literally no days in which I can sort my shit out. Um, have you been on trips before whereby you haven't come back 10 pounds heavier? And no, the answer is yes, and you've literally just been on one, right? So a lot of the time, the fear that we've got is not founded in evidence. If every single time you went away on a trip, you came back 10 pounds heavier, I'd be like, okay, cool. But that says everything about what you do on the trip. Do you know what I mean? And again, so cool. Let's say worst case scenario, you're away for 3 weeks. You can't be in control of anything in terms of, protein, what you're eating, what have you. If we consider that calories are the biggest factor in body weight change, like you can always be in control of how much that you actually have. If you can't be in control of what you're eating, you can always be in control of how much. Do you need to go up for seconds? Do you need that second bottle of wine? Like, do you know what I mean? So I would just use some of those practices and find the level whereby you're really enjoying your time with the people you're with. You're really enjoying the seasonal foods, but you're not taking the piss out of them. And team, for me, right? So like for those of you that are going away, or having family time, whatever it may be. So I typically like a sort of like 1-to-1 ratio of the amount of time that you've been out for the amount of time that it should take maximum to get your shit back together to be the same body composition or the same weight. Here's what I mean. You go away for 3 weeks, it shouldn't take you more than 3 weeks to get right back down to your lowest low. And if it does, either you haven't sorted your shit out quick enough or you had a pretty good time and we put on some serious weight. And again, both of those scenarios we can address. So a 1-to-1 ratio is quite nice. Yeah. But ultimately, like, do you not know how to pull body fat off your body? You do. You definitely do. All of you do. But again, speaking to myself here, but therefore, because of that, don't then justify bad decisions because you'll be like, I know I can sort it out because it still becomes harder to do so. And we don't want to exacerbate the sort of like yo-yoing. You know what I mean? Hope that helps. Different amount. So yes, you do feel better compared to last December, which is cool. So for me, I've taken away choose a wiser booze, choose an indulgent, not 6 pints and 8 courses. Yeah, pick one. Don't go in somewhere hungry, exactly, which I have been recently, and exactly what you say has happened. The easiest way to stop that from happening, dude, like protein shake literally before you go, like almost immediately before you go, like bang it back in the car. Yeah, and you'll actually be annoyed at how full you feel and how quickly you feel full. Yeah. Last year, however, I kept steps up and training and kept that bounce back easier. So that would be one thing in which I would want you to do again because that went very well for you. You know what I mean? And yeah, that high energy expenditure, steps up, like training, keep on training. We talked about that nutrient partitioning, all that good stuff. Like keep it up if you can. Chris, feel like there are some things I can do to mitigate December setbacks. Still worry. Cool. Just think though, like the worst case scenario is that nothing that we've been through today helps, or you choose not to implement it, or you can't implement it, or you don't implement it. Again, like unless someone is sitting there with a knife and fork next to you, wielding open your mouth, opening and just like shoveling food down, you can always be in control of the very factor, which is the biggest one, as to whether or not you gain weight or not. And that's going to be literally how much of the food are you eating? Yeah. Again, if we can't get to a gym, can we not do some body weight stuff in our room, in the hotel, whatever it is? Can you make a conscious decision to be active and just get some steps in? Honestly, it makes a difference. Do you know what I mean? And again, let's say it all goes to shit. It all goes to shit. We'll sort it out in January. Yeah. But try and use some of these tactics to make sure that you're not in a position whereby you're not happy or you're unhappy in Jan. Because January is still quite a stressful time. Yeah. Long one, team. Long one. That's it. That is it. Really, really hope that's been helpful and beneficial. I enjoyed this one. And don't get me wrong, like, when you look in the lab and you go into the managing social section, there's a bunch of stuff for like managing meals out, managing social pressure, mindset, all that, like, so nothing changes. Like the same stuff that we talk about for Christmas, it's going to happen at Easter. For my American lot, it's going to happen at Thanksgiving. Okay. It's going to happen at Halloween. It's going to happen in summer. But a lot of the time, just getting really sort of granular on where things are at right now and the seasonality of it. And also, if you are in the UK, Christmas is a big deal. I think it can be quite impactful. Yeah. So you're very welcome. I'm glad that this call has been useful. I enjoyed it as well. Um, Pick up some of these strategies. Let me know what you do differently this year. And more than anything, let's finish the year strong, whatever that means to you personally. All right. Wicked team. Thanks so much. Appreciate the feedback. And yeah, I'll bang this back on the podcast and in the group probably tomorrow morning. All right. Have a great evening, and I'll talk to you very soon. In a bit. Nice one, guys. Bye.